do it. They didn't do it. Studio Series is supposed to be the be-all, end-all of all the movie lines, where toys get their final shot at being amazing. But they didn't do it. We've had Legends triple changes, we've had Deluxe triple changes in classics, we've had Titans Return come around, they could have done a Voyager class, but they didn't do it. The character is a triple changer, but they didn't do it.
Nowadays, as the fandom changes and evolves, individual fans are often asking for very specific things, and they also often point out things to complain about when it comes to what the toy doesn't do, as opposed to what it does. In some cases that is justified, such as the recent Siege flywheels. Power of the Primes was able to give us a perfect representation of Battletrap with individual robot modes, and it was greatly appreciated. But then Siege just goes for toy accuracy and ditches it altogether. And it's a real shame, even if the toy is still good on its own. But sometimes those complaints about what a toy doesn't do aren't so justified. And that brings us to today's topic, which has come under a lot of scrutiny as of late. But does a fantastic toy lie underneath? Greetings Cybertronians, I'm Dr. Lockdown, and today we're reviewing Studio Series Dropkick. So Dropkick appears to be an all-new character from the upcoming Bumblebee movie, yet apparently he shares the same name with another Dropkick from Revenge of the Fallen. Look, personally I reckon they share the same name but aren't connected at all. But regardless, Dropkick transforms into a beautiful, albeit small, helicopter. From a distance, this thing is an impeccably painted and awesomely sculpted alt mode, with tamper graphs aplenty and almost zero kibble. It feels less like a Transformers alt mode and more like one of those die-cast war vehicles that cost upwards of $300. However, when you get closer, the illusion doesn't quite shatter, no pun intended, but you do start to notice the compromises. The clean parts can look a little scrappy along the paint lines at times, and in certain lighting conditions, and occasionally the blue bleeds through from behind the grey paint. The colour matching is basically perfect, but when the paint itself isn't quite perfect, it doesn't really shine through. The back section also can get a little messy, with several hinges visible and both hands sticking out of the back for some reason. Also, and this is a really sad thing, sometimes the figure holds together perfectly, other times it's a bloody nightmare getting the legs together. I don't think there's any trick to it, it's just luck of the draw. On a side note, Dropkick's weapons integrate seamlessly into the 5mm ports on the sides, and the helicopter doesn't quite look complete without them. I think they're Gatling guns. There's probably a name for it, but I don't know, and quite frankly I don't care. Still, it's nice that they use the universal standard for weapon ports, so you can get some extra play value if you so desire. Also, on a side note, and I don't think I've complained about this in the script, but I'll add it in now, you cannot spin it properly. It's just locks in place. This does have the upside of being completely solid in robot mode, but, you know, it is a play feature that most copter formers have, which is quite fun. This works perfectly fine, though, which is quite fun. Whee! Size-wise, he's not exactly small, so much as his mass is elongated to an extreme degree. As far as Luxes go, this is a long, long man. Insert gummy joke here. Dropkick's transformation reminds me very much of the toys that were released around Revenge of the Fallen, and I mean that as a compliment. It's complex, it's genius, there's all sorts of moving parts, but it's got modern sensibilities to it as well, so it's not a complete nightmare. The first thing you want to do is take off the guns. Unfortunately, they have to be parts formed, but as you know me, if you've watched my channel before, you'll know that I don't mind weapon parts forming. The first thing you're going to want to do is bring these side panels up, like so, just to get them out of the way for later. Makes things a lot easier. Next thing you want to do is come to the back here. You'll notice these aren't really properly pegged together, but they should be, but getting them together is a nightmare. You're going to want to unpeg them like that and bring them out. They're out on a sort of double hinge, so you can bring them out like so, and they will lock into place on the ball joints, on the hinges there too. From there you can straighten out the legs and have them facing the top. It'll make things a lot easier. From here you can come around here and start work on the arms by separating them, which also gets them out of the way. You come around here, open up this top panel over here, and bring this down just a little bit. Not all the way, because that'll lock in once the torso is ready. You can then get this entire section over here and flip it around. Unfortunately, that neuters the waist swivel, but given how genius the transformation is, I don't really mind. Then you can get to work on the legs. Make sure this gun is folded in. I always forget to do that when going back into the vehicle mode, but it's important to get it done. Then you can collapse the legs. And I'm really seeing this type of transformation a lot lately. The first time I saw it was on Titans Return Cup, but seeing it in a lot of other Transformers is quite good. I also saw it on DX9 Carry, but that's another story for another time. You then rotate the legs to the front, and then you can rotate these kibble pieces to the back. You go to the back, you collapse the landing struts, I think that's what they're called, and then you collapse the wings. And look at that, completely clean, no excess kibble. It's brilliant. Plus, they don't cheat anything. Everything you see here is part of the vehicle mode. They're not cheating with any parts. I absolutely love that. Unfortunately, when we get to the arms, it's not going to be as good. You fold up these bits here. You then rotate these around to the front. And then you collapse them. And that's the arms done. But it's just lazy in comparison. You've got this awesome transformation on the legs and the torso, and then the arms just kind of fold in on themselves. It's not very nice. Come around to the back. You make this fold in on itself and orient it correctly. You make sure these are up so that they can be properly stored as back kibble. I keep them out of the way for now as well, because then you can come in here and pull up these faux headlights. That's supposed to mimic the car parts in the robot mode, and that's pretty good. You come around here, these arms fold up like so, and then down again. And that's another thing I love. That's straight from the MP36. It's a brilliant transformation scheme. These will then click into place. The chest will lock everything else in there. You can finally come to the back and get these kibble pieces into a nice, cohesive backpack. And that just leaves the weapons. Now, unfortunately, when it comes to the weapons, you're supposed to flip it out. But I can't really do it on camera. Usually I end up using my teeth to do it. But basically, it would flip out like so. So you can see how it's supposed to work, but I'm not going to do it on camera because it's near impossible. But that leaves us with simply putting the weapons in Dropkick's hands. Unfortunately, they don't go in as far as I would have hoped, partially because the weapons oh, I just realized that's not transformed properly. Yes, as I was saying, partially because the hands are so thin given the transformation, and partially because the weapons are so thin as well, because they have to peg into the incredibly thin wings. But at the very least, they are 5mm compatible. In this day and age, it's a rather difficult task to identify what counts as kibble on a movie toy, and what doesn't. I mean, sure, sometimes it's pretty obvious, like the case with most backpacks on Carformers, but other times pieces of the alt modes blur so cleverly into the robot mode that determining what's kibble and what isn't becomes near impossible. The robot mode for Dropkick is so close that it's amazing, yet the glaring fault that is the arms just brings it down. I'm sorry, but after the genius system that we've just gone through, these arms just come across as lazy, specifically the lower arms. The shoulders are fine, albeit a little thin, but the helicopter tail-end kibble isn't good at all. It's a real shame. The back is completely clean, and the legs are clearly defined. The truly amazing thing is that there are virtually no points on the robot mode where it cheats for parts. It might be due to artistic licenses that the robot mode has taken to further itself from the on-screen model, but this robot mode has no faux parts at all, and almost no unnecessary kibble, aside from the arms. Even the back cleans up immaculately, although kibble management can be a little confusing at times. In terms of articulation, he's pretty stock standard. The head is on a ball joint, but really it acts as a swivel, as it doesn't get any up and down movement. The shoulders are ball jointed with a separate hinge that allows outward movement. He has bicep swivels that could be a little looser, and his elbows go up to 90. Unfortunately, he lacks swivels in the wrists and the waist, but he does have standard ball joints at the hips and a thigh swivel. Finally, although not double jointed, his knees bend completely unhampered, although he lacks an ankle tilt or hinge to make full use of it. Overall, the articulation's basically what you'd expect from a deluxe, with some amazing knees to complement it. Now yes, the robot mode for this guy is a little on the small size, but it's not so ridiculously small that it makes you question the size class. Besides, the engineering definitely makes up for it. Okay, so that leaves us with one more alt mode. Now, how do we get to the car mode? I haven't actually looked at the instructions yet. So the propeller's attached? Nah, it's pegged in. Maybe it comes apart. Perhaps car bits fall out of there? Nope. Maybe the guns become headlights? Nope, that's not it either. Maybe they combine together in some way? Perhaps the reason for this tail kibble... Nah, that's not gonna happen. Hold on a second. I'll be right back.
Yes, hello, is this Hasbro Australia? Ah, sweet. Listen, I'm having a bit of a problem with one of your figures. I've recently bought Studio Series Dropkick, and I can't seem to find any instructions for the car mode. I'm not even finding any images online. What do you mean there's no car mode? Hello? Hello?
Yes, apparently Hasbro decided not to give him the car mode he has in the upcoming movie. A car mode that shares virtually no kibble with the helicopter mode, and a car mode that would compromise a lot at the deluxe scale. Yeah, I can see why they skipped it. Studio Series is all about scale, and in order to get anything convincing on the two figures, they would have to make both Shatter and Dropkick leader size, which is what I'm actually expecting for the eventual Blitzwing. No, he hasn't been confirmed yet, but let's face it, a Studio Series Blitzwing is definitely happening at some point. It's a little unfortunate that Studio Series is supposed to be the be-all and end-all for these characters, and they've had an alt-mode shafted from the design process, but let's face it, it's impossible to do at a regular price point. Now Unique Toys, on the other hand, they could have a shot at it. I think they should tackle Drift and Crosshairs first, but I'd love to see Unique Toys try their hand at this. And that brings us back to the original topic. Should we complain about what a toy doesn't do, or should we celebrate its brilliance? I think the answer's pretty obvious. On its own, this is a fantastic copter former with a genius transformation that is pulling all sorts of nostalgic memories. As a matter of fact, given my proximity to where these figures are coming out, I've sourced 3 of them already. One of them is already in the hands of a friend of mine who is calling it the best toy of the year. Now that person only collects Hasbro figures, but it's not hard to see why. I wouldn't exactly agree with him, but I still reckon this figure is brilliant. If you are a fan of movie toys and love engaging transformations, then you owe it to yourself to pick this up. I would have liked a little bit more articulation, but given the transformation, it's not really possible, and also given the budget. The Studio Series line once again proves to the world that it is a juggernaut in the franchise. And personally, I cannot wait for the companion piece to come out soon. But that's enough of that. That's my last proper review for the year, before I get into something a little bit special. See, a certain season is coming up, and I think it's important we celebrate with something a little legendary.